All right, so there I was, just me and my mom hanging out at this lake she'd been raving about for weeks. She promised it was going to be a good day. A little mother, some bonding time. Now, my mom, she's the type who always finds these hidden gems, off the beaten path, away from the usual crowd. We rolled up to this lake and it looked like something out of a postcard. Crystal clear water, surrounded by tall trees casting shade in just the right spots. I was vibing with the serenity of it all, just soaking in the chill atmosphere. My mom, she's on her phone, probably gossiping with her sister or something. I was kicking back, throwing some pebbles into the water when, out of the blue, this lady storms up. Total Karen vibe. The haircut, the attitude, the whole package. She starts going on about how we're on private property, like she's the gatekeeper of the secret lake or something. I'm a chill guy, don't like drama, so I tell her it's cool, we'll bounce. But then my mom, she's a feisty one, tells Karen she's full of it, that this place ain't private. And that's when the real show starts. Karen, she goes from 0 to 100 real quick. I've never seen someone get so worked up about a lake. She's red in the face, veins popping, and I'm thinking, lady, it's just water. She gets all up in my mom's grill, and I'm like, oh, Karen, back up. My mom, she's standing her ground, not letting Karen push her around. They're going back and forth like a tennis match of words. Then, out of nowhere, Karen does the unthinkable. She straight up grabs my mom and tosses her into the lake. Now, I'm a laid-back guy, but you don't mess with my mom. I'm seeing red at this point. I stride over, trying to keep my cool, but my blood's boiling. I get right up in Karen's face, and I'm like, you seriously just threw my mom in the lake? She smirks, thinking she's won or something, and tells me to leave before she throws me in too. Now, I ain't having that. I might be chill, but I ain't gonna let someone assault my mom and get away with it. I square up, give her this look like, you're done. I grab her not violently, but firm. Like enough to let her know I mean business. And then, without thinking, I toss her into the lake. Karma's a witch, ain't it? She hits the water, flailing and sputtering, and I'm just standing there feeling a mix of shock and satisfaction. I turn back to my mom, who's shaking off the water and looking at me like I'm both a hero and a maniac. I help her out, and we're both dripping wet, but we're laughing. It's absurd, like something out of a sitcom. But the story ain't over yet. Karen, now soaking wet and realizing she messed with the wrong pair, starts screeching about calling the cops. I beat her to it, pull out my phone, and dial 911. Yo, officers, you won't believe what just went down at this supposedly private lake. Karen over here thinks she owns the place, assaulted my mom, and got a taste of her own medicine. Send someone over, please. Cops show up. Karen's still yapping about rights and trespassing. My mom and I tell our side of the story, and thankfully, there were witnesses who saw the whole thing. Karen, she tries to spin some tale about being the victim, but the officers aren't buying it. Long story short, she gets slapped with assault charges, and we press charges for trespassing too. The officers are giving me that nod, like, good job standing up for your mom. It's surreal, like we're in a comedy with a moral lesson. We go back to our day, a bit soggy, but victorious. The lake, once a serene retreat, now has a legendary tale attached to it. Morale of the story: don't mess with a guy and his mom, especially when they're just trying to enjoy a peaceful day by the water. And that, my friends, is how Karen learned not to play with fire at the secret lake. This happened a few years ago when I was trying to get back into reading. High school and college kind of destroyed my love for the hobby by forcing me to read the classics. Some of them were good. A lot of them are outdated and boring. And as a person with ADHD, forcing me to read a 500-page book that I hated was agonizing. But I've been an avid player of Dungeons & Dragons for a while, so I decided to try and rekindle the hobby by buying some fantasy books. I did some research before I went out to the store and had a short list of what I wanted to buy. Off to Barnes & Noble, I went. Barnes & Noble, as I've learned, tends to lump sci-fi and fantasy together in the same section, but given I knew exactly what I was looking for, it didn't bother me much. I entered the aisle and already there was a frustrated-looking Corinne with 2 books in her hands looking between them, not reading them, just staring perplexed at the covers. From a quick glance, she seemed to be about in her 70s with short gray hair, though the scowling pout on her face made her look like a petulant child. I must have seemed like I knew what I was doing. After all, I had come in already knowing what I wanted. It took about 30 seconds for me to quickly pick out the 3 books I wanted to try, but obviously that was not quick enough to avoid being flagged down. "Excuse me, young man." The Karen called after me right before I was about to step out of the aisle, so close to avoiding this interaction. I work in customer service, though, so reflexively, I turned on the smile. "Yes, ma'am. Can a woman get some help over here?" There's a slight pause, and I'm about to tell her that I'll send an employee right over, but she continues talking. "I need some help picking out a gift for my grandson." I deflate a little bit, as I don't much like interacting with strangers, but this woman hasn't done anything rude yet, so I decide to try and be nice. "Well, what kind of book is he looking for?" "My grandson likes fantasy," she says. I take a look at the books in her hands, both of which are very clearly not fantasy as they both have spaceships on the front. For now, I keep the condescending tone out of my voice. "Hey, I'm sorry, but both of those are sci-fi books." Karen: "Well, how was I possibly supposed to know that?" Me: "Well, anything with a spaceship or any kind of technology on the cover is a dead giveaway for starters." Karen: "My grandson says that Sisyphus is stupid. I won't risk giving him some garbage story. You need to give me a fantasy book for my grandson." Me: "Look, ma'am, I don't work here. If you want a recommendation, I can—" Karen: "Oh, that's nonsense. You've been helping me already, and now you're just trying to be lazy." I begin losing my patience. I deal with these types of people at my place of work, and I refuse to be nice to them outside of work. Me: "Well, here's an idea for you. How about you read the back of the book? You know, the little section that says what the book is about, instead of just staring at the covers." Karen: "How dare you talk back to me? It's not my job to know what the books are about. It's yours." Me: "Oh yeah, must be such a strain to read 5 sentences. You definitely need to have people do that for you. Or hell, why not just Google popular fantasy books? You have a phone, don't you?" At this point, Karen is red in the face. Karen: "I'm not going to spend my time on reading this nothing genre. I only waste my time on books of substance. I just want a gift for my grandson." Me: "Like I said, Google fantasy books and pick a random title if you're so averse to reading." Karen: "What does averse mean? Use words that people can understand." I look at her with a raised eyebrow for a moment or two and then just turn around. "Bye, Karen." She grabs my arm, and at this point, I'm very careful. I'm a 6'5" man, and this is a tiny old woman. If I react to her grabbing me, even reflexively, it could be very bad. Karen: "You're not going anywhere. Where's your manager?" "I don't," I begin to say, but stop as I have an idea. With as tall as I am, I can easily see over the aisles and find the corner of the store that is furthest away from the cash registers. Hiding my smirk, I say, "Oh, he's over in the biographies section. It's over there." I point with my free arm to the back corner of the store. Karen tugs on my arm and says, "You're coming with me." But given my height and weight, I just stay firmly planted and watch this small woman try to drag me away. After about a minute, she huffs, face nearly purple with rage now as she says, "You wait here," and storms off to the back of the store. I do no such thing. Rather, I go and buy my books at the cash register. Just as the cashier is handing my bag and receipt, I hear there he is. I frown at that and turn to see that she has actually found the manager, who is looking confused. Karen: "That's the employee who shoved me." Having already received my books and knowing that no one there could do anything to actually stop me, I walked out of the store as the Karen tried to convince the manager that I was just so horrible to her. The manager nodded at me to leave. I got in my car and left, not ever knowing how that turned out. I was never contacted by police, nor was I banned from the store, so clearly her claim didn't stick. I still visit this store regularly today, and I have never seen this woman again. Wasn't sure where to post this. First-time poster, long-time lurker. A little background. My father never properly learned to read and write. He came from a dysfunctional home, but that's another story. He was, however, very good at fixing cars. He worked at a junkyard since before I was born. I'll call this junkyard AF. A lot of times he would offer advice or even fix the cars of the customers on his own time as a side hustle. Another thing about my dad is he knew everybody. Anywhere we went, people would always stop him and speak to him, mostly asking about a problem they were having with their cars. It didn't matter where we went. Even on vacation across the country, he ran into people he knew. The junkyard he worked at was originally owned by 2 brothers. They were good bosses, and he made a decent wage and had very good health insurance. They made good business there, and my father was the senior sales specialist. Business was so good, they bought a new location and built a new building and moved there. A few years later, the business was sold to a guy named Dave. Dave was all right, although we lost the health insurance. He stayed there for, I'd say, 8 or 9 more years. One day out of the blue, Dave fires my dad and said it was because he didn't have enough technical skill. He couldn't hardly read or write, but he could use the computer one-handed to search the system for parts while on the phone with a customer. He and 2 or 3 other guys would be in the front to help customers, and my dad's line would have 2 or 3 people waiting especially for him and would refuse to be waited on by someone else. So he came home and filed for unemployment. He stayed home for maybe 3 weeks and was offered a job at another junkyard that was located between the city we lived and the next city over. Now comes the malicious compliance. Since my father was so well liked and everyone knew he got a raw deal from junkyard, they also switched businesses. All his longtime customers and friends now frequented Junkyard B. Many used car dealerships had deals with my father for the junk cars they sold for parts or parts they needed for fixing their used cars. All these businesses also switched junkyards and followed my dad to Junkyard B. This was a devastating hit to Junkyard's business. So bad, in fact, they ended up selling the business to the owners of Junkyard B. As soon as the sale was finished, my dad was sent back to Junkyard, where he worked for the rest of his life. He actually died in the junkyard. Massive heart attack. The funeral was so full of people, there was not enough room for everyone in the funeral home. His funeral procession, the line of cars that drive uninterrupted from the funeral home to the cemetery, was over an hour long due to so many cars. My mom went to buy the plot next to his a few days after the funeral, and the lady working there said she had been working there for over 40 years, and it was one of the largest group gathered for a funeral she had ever seen. He may not have been able to read or write very well, but he knew cars, and he knew people, a lot of people. The countdown to my college graduation had begun, and the mix of excitement and nervousness filled my days. The years of hard work, juggling part-time jobs and evening classes, were finally coming to fruition. Graduating during the pandemic had its challenges, but I had persevered, and the prospect of starting a credential program in child development this fall added a layer of anticipation to the milestone. In the midst of planning my small graduation party at my parents' house in June, an unexpected twist entered the scene through a call from my mom, eager to share an idea proposed by a family friend, Amy. According to my mom, Amy suggested that we have a joint celebration. Amy's oldest kid, Lila, was graduating from kindergarten, and she believed it would be a wonderful opportunity for both of us to save money and create a joyous event for our families. Initially, the idea seemed far-fetched to me. I imagined a chaotic blend of kindergarten cheers and college farewells, and I couldn't fathom how my friends and I could navigate such a diverse crowd. Politely but firmly, I declined the suggestion, expressing my concerns about the potential mismatch between Lila's celebration and my college graduation party. My mom respected my decision and conveyed the news to Amy. However, things took an unexpected turn when Amy messaged me directly, accusing me of breaking Lila's heart and labeling me as self-involved and jealous of a 6-year-old stealing the spotlight. I was taken aback by the sudden hostility. In a series of messages, Amy argued that she deserved just as much recognition for her achievements in raising kids and reaching milestones as a parent. She claimed that I was being dismissive of her journey and belittling her efforts. Amy pointed out that she had already celebrated a baby shower and a wedding the previous year, asserting that she was not lacking attention. Frustration and confusion bubbled within me as I tried to explain my perspective. I acknowledged and admired Amy's achievements, but emphasized that my college graduation was a personal milestone that I had worked tirelessly to reach. I suggested that Amy could have her own celebration, where she could receive the recognition she desired without overshadowing my achievement. The conversation spiraled into a heated exchange of words. Amy argued that college wasn't a big deal and urged me to get over myself. She claimed that I had made a child cry because I wanted the attention to myself. The accusation stung, and I couldn't fathom how my refusal had escalated to such a point. As the days passed, tensions lingered. I grappled with the conflicting emotions of guilt and frustration. It seemed that a celebration meant to honor my hard work and dedication had transformed into a battleground of egos. Despite the clash with Amy, I remained steadfast in my decision to have a separate celebration, one that would allow me to cherish my accomplishments and share the moment with friends and family who had supported me throughout my journey. The countdown continued, and the looming graduation day carried both the weight of past struggles and the promise of a new chapter. I couldn't help but hope that, in time, the tensions with Amy would ease, allowing both of us to celebrate our respective milestones without the shadow of conflict. The relentless snowstorm outside mirrored the mounting frustration within me. It had been weeks since the first incident with my tenants, and now a new saga of irritation unfolded with the classmate of my 9-year-old son. I couldn't shake off the audacity of that first morning when my tenant's child knocked on my door requesting a ride to school. The mother, a stay-at-home parent, seemingly oblivious to the inconvenience, shattered any semblance of cordiality we once shared. Grateful for the newfound silence, I thought that was the end of it. Little did I know this was just the beginning. Today, the clock ticked away, and my patience wore thin. The snowstorm outside raged on, and for 2 consecutive days, my living room had transformed into an unintended waiting area for my son's classmate. A child I barely knew sought refuge until his perpetually tardy mother decided to grace us with her presence. As I sat by the window, glancing at the snow-covered street, the unwelcome visitor fidgeted on the couch, oblivious to the brewing storm inside the house. Finally, the doorbell rang and I rushed to answer it, my irritation palpable. The boy's mother stood outside, car engine running. "Oh, hey, sorry for the delay," she called out casually, her tone far too nonchalant for my liking. I gritted my teeth, trying to maintain composure. "Listen, this can't keep happening. I'm not your personal babysitter." The woman blinked in confusion, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort she was causing. "What do you mean?" "It's just for a little while." My frustration erupted. "I don't know you, and I don't know your kid. It's not my responsibility to watch him every day after school." The woman's face contorted into a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Well, he's friends with your son, right? What's the big deal?" "The big deal is that I'm a single mom. I have my own responsibilities. I can't keep watching your kid every day. It's not fair to me or my son." The woman huffed, clearly not accustomed to being confronted. "It's just until I get here. What's the harm?" My eyes narrowed. "The harm is that I'm not here to cater to your irresponsibility. Find another solution, but don't expect me to be at your beck and call." With that, I slammed the door shut, leaving the woman standing in the freezing cold. It was a bold move for me, a typically reserved individual, but I had reached my breaking point. As the days passed, the woman began to arrange alternate plans for her child. I, too, found solace in standing up for myself and protecting my time with my son. The incident served as a catalyst for change, transforming me from a reluctant bystander to a firm defender of my boundaries.